I'm Kate Trafford. I'm a master coach and author and speaker. My absolute passion subject is authentic success. That's what gets me out of bed in the morning. That's what I'm excited about. I've been working in my business, which is development focused in businesses, for close to 25 years now. I am a chartered chemical engineer by professional background, and my career began in the nuclear industry. What attracted me to that profession in the first place was the idea of being a professional problem solver. You know, the rest, as they say, is history.
So thank you very much, Kate, for coming for my podcast. And the first thing that I would like to ask you, can you tell us a little bit more about yourself, about what you do on a daily basis? What is it you love doing? What is your mission? Just anything which will help us to understand who you are.
Thanks, Vincent. Well, it's great to be here. And by way of introduction, I'm Kate Trafford. I'm a master coach and author and speaker. And my specialist subject, my absolute passion subject, is authentic success. So I help individuals and teams and businesses to not only achieve great things, but also to have an amazing time along the way. And that's what gets me out of bed in the morning. That's what I'm excited about.
Mm-hmm. Okay, amazing. Thank you very much for sharing that. And when you said you are a master coach, what does it mean, being a master coach? Like, if somebody is listening, like, what does it mean?
Well, it's there's quite a formal definition, and it depends where you qualify with, if you like. It's a credential that relates to a certain amount of coaching experience, a certain level of qualifications, so many hundreds of hours of coaching practice. So I've been working in my business, which is development focused in businesses, for close to 25 years now, and I've probably been doing the one-to-one coaching side of that for about 20 years. So I absolutely love it. And, you know, because I know that my coaching clients are often really striving for exceptional performance along the way, then I obviously like to hold myself to that standard as well. And I know you do, Vincent. We've spoken about that a little bit in the past.
Okay, amazing. Thank you very much. So it seems like you have lots of experience, 20 years in one-to-one coaching and 25 years in total. So, wow, it's amazing. And when you started 25 years ago with the coaching, why have you started? Why have you decided to go this path? What did you do before?
Well, let's start with what I did before. So I haven't always done what I do right now. In fact, I've had quite a scenic route to get to where I am right now. I actually originally studied engineering. So I am a chartered chemical engineer by professional background, and my career began in the nuclear industry. And I think that what attracted me to that profession in the first place was the idea of being a professional problem solver. Right. But like most young people, when they're making career choices, I didn't know myself well enough at that point to understand that what I was really excited about was not the kind of dry, abstract kind of task-based problem solving, but actually the people and relationship kind of side of the equation. So whilst it's still relevant these days that I have those qualifications, a lot of my clients, for example, are larger technical organizations or leaders of technical professionals. The thing that kind of got me onto the path that I'm on right now was originally just my own personal and professional development. I wanted to be really good at my job. So I studied NLP, I read endlessly. I was just fascinated by what is it that contributes to really stellar success, right? You know, what is it that makes the difference? And what I actually found, one of the keys that I discovered along the way, was this idea of personal authenticity. In other words, not just focusing on a job that you can do, but a job that draws on who you really are at your core and what you love to bring, right? And that's different for each of us. So I made a career change at the very end of my 20s. I like to playfully suggest that I might have had my midlife crisis a bit early. I was 29. I went off on maternity leave for the first time with, with a nursery place booked and all of that to go back to what I was doing before. But with that time and that headspace to reflect, what I realized was that I was getting a great deal of job satisfaction from only a very, very small part of my job. And I got curious about what it might look like and sound like and feel like if all of my job felt that way. And, the rest, as they say, is history. I ended up starting my own business, which was originally a training and facilitation consultancy. And the coaching came into the mix on the back of that. So I'd run workshops or team building sessions, that kind of thing. And then people started to approach me and said, oh, I'd like to work with you on this more fully, more deeply. Could we maybe work one-to-one? So as is often the way with these things, this path just unfolded in front of me, and I followed my curiosity, and this is where it brought me, which is amazing.
Wow. Yeah, it is amazing. From being in a chemical nuclear industry now helping leaders and through the coaching and speaking is amazing. Yeah. And who usually do you coach or speak to? Like, do you have certain people who usually approach you, and what kind of, if you can share, what kind of challenges they might be facing in their kind of industry where you can help them?
Fantastic. Well, most of my clients work for quite large organizations, in many cases, very large corporations. And the work that I do that I think I most enjoy, I most relish, is the work with the emerging leaders of the organization. So I have done, the sort of most senior executive C-suite level of work. I have worked with people much earlier in their career, but I think my sweet spot where I add the most value is with people who are perhaps in their first significant leadership role, and they're making that transition from managing projects and situations to actually leading a part of the organization. And that is such an important transition. It can be a very, very exciting transition, but it can also be really daunting, because a lot of the mindset and skill set that might have contributed to their success in the early part of their career is no longer what's needed. In fact, sometimes the exact opposite is what is needed. So a quick concrete example of that would be that my clients often have got to where they are by having all the answers, right? By being very knowledgeable, very solution orientated, being the guy or the gal with all the answers. But as they move into their leadership phase, what they find is it's much more important to have the right questions, right? To be the person in the room who's asking really incisive, on point, powerful questions. So there are many, many examples like that, Vincent, where what's going to support you going forward has shifted very significantly. And I love, and I find it to be a deep privilege to be alongside people while they're making that important transition.
Yeah, wow, it's amazing. Yeah, I mean, now just to remind me, two moments. We have a small company, but we have there 4 employees, and we promoted one recently, a couple of months ago, and we gave her like a manager position now, that she manages these 2 people who are like a customer support for our company. And it was very interesting to see, because she obviously is not trained to be a leader, be a manager, and we just kind of gave her that promotion. But after we found out, maybe we need to, teach her a few things in order how to lead with people, and even write things down, because people sometimes we assume people would know, but they don't, right?
No, and you and I didn't know when we first moved from being individual contributors to a team to having our first supervisory positions. We didn't know, but that's what's known as the curse of knowledge, right? The curse is that you know it, so you kind of forget that other people don't, and it's sometimes important to plug ourselves back into what was it like in those early days. But coming back to your previous question, Vincent, where you asked me what kinds of challenges are people are often experiencing, as well as what I've already mentioned about, the whole idea of, well, what's got me here doesn't look like it's going to get me to where I want to be. It doesn't seem my strategies aren't working for me anymore.
Mm-hmm.
The other big challenge that I think is particularly topical right now is around how to ensure that their success and their contribution is sustainable for them. So in other words, avoiding burnout. Right? Being able to make the biggest possible, most high quality contribution to their company without sort of, killing themselves along the way, ruining their relationships, all of that other important stuff.
Yeah.
And most people's approach to that is to think about it in terms of balance. But all that does really is kind of amplify the tension because, well, my work is important, but my life is important as well. So it really creates this difficult tension. Whereas I like to really support my clients in exploring how prioritizing their well-being and their joy in work and their deep satisfaction in their work can actually drive the performance in their work as well. So they're not competing, they're actually pulling in the same direction. It's very exciting.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's like you mentioned, like that a lot of people, they experience the burnout. And fortunately I didn't, but I know that a lot of people, they just focus on one direction and they don't see left and right. And after something like that happened, and it's like what you are sharing, or what you were sharing also when I heard you speak, it's about not only about the goal or what you want to achieve, but it's about the journey, that we enjoy the process, right?
Absolutely. And so there are lots of reasons why I'm a huge advocate for looking at the joy of the journey. And it's not just because I'm a a warm and pink and fluffy kind of person who just wants everybody to be happy, sunshine and rainbows. It isn't just that, although of course I have a preference for lots of people experiencing joy. It is actually that is also when we do our highest quality thinking and we do our most inclusive thinking. So we're able to integrate all of the things that matter to us instead of focusing in that very single-minded way that you were just talking about there. So a quick practical example of that would be that an entrepreneur who starts a business, as you're a very entrepreneurial guy, Vincent, and it's one of the things I admire about you, that many people who start a business have a big vision for what they want to achieve and what they want to create, and that often involves financial abundance and employment for others and all kinds of wonderful things. And if they also have a family, then it's like that becomes part of what's in the mix. So it's like, I want to provide an amazing life for my family, right? I want to create this abundance and provide for my family. But if you don't think in that whole-brained way, you can dedicate yourself so single-mindedly to your work that your family end up not knowing you. And I know I can say this to you, Vincent, because I've heard you speak, and I know you know this already. You put beautiful photographs of your gorgeous kids on the screen because they are a big part of what you're doing, but you're very involved in their lives, right? You haven't fallen into that trap, which kudos to you. So it's really about making sure that your whole brain and nervous system is lit up as you're making choices so that you can be creative and inclusive and have your best possible ideas along the way, but feel like you're fully living rather than shifting between work and life in a very kind of compartmentalized way.
Yeah, you're right. I think it needs to be like a full experience of life, because before I was sharing that story, obviously, when you heard me speak, but before I was trying to succeed in business, I had this food truck, but it was taking me so much time, was so much preparation, so much time being away from my family, and I wasn't enjoying it anymore because it was too much. So after, obviously, I realized what I want, what is my values. Number one is my family. So, but the thing is, there is always a way to build the business and have the family with you, if you decide that this is the way how you want to do it. But a lot of people, they think it's impossible to have both. So they kind of, like you are saying, they're juggling, but they don't need to juggle if they know how to balance, how to kind of, live the life and just be like, because you can be I found out, I mean, without the family, I wouldn't achieve what I'm achieving right now, because the thing is, they are my biggest driving force. If
Yes.
I wouldn't have them, I wouldn't achieve what I'm achieving, that's for sure. And second thing is, like, when you have less time and if you have more kids, because I'm having more kids, you realize that you can actually be very productive in much shorter period of time and just focus on the main things. And actually you are moving even sometimes more than when you had more time.
You're so right there, Vincent. And I think that what this speaks to is this very foundational question that I think we all have to ask ourselves if we want to be successful in business and in life. And that is, what does success actually mean to me? Right? We've all been kind of conditioned with ideas of what good looks like, of what success actually means. But that might not be true for you or for whoever is listening to us right now. And so asking, how will I know that I've been successful in a few years' time? How will I know when I look back that I've been successful? And making sure that that doesn't just include those external achievements, but also includes ideas like, how will I have grown as a person? What will I be comfortable and confident with that is new for me right now? What will I have discovered about myself and the difference, the genuine difference I want to make in the world? So asking that question, what does success actually look like for me, gives you a very individualized and authentic vision of your success that can call you forward and call forward the best in you. And then ask yourself a second question, which is, okay, along the way, how will I know that I'm being successful? And yes, again, there will be some external metrics, some little milestones that you'll want to achieve and accomplish and rendezvous with along the way. But there will also be those inner experiences. How much of the time am I feeling so focused in the way that you were just describing? Or how much am I feeling like I'm growing into my courage? Or how often am I experiencing joy and connection with other people? So each of us individually, I think we owe it to ourselves to take the conditioning we had about what success means, take it as a starting point for sure, but then personalize it and say, okay, what does success mean for me? And how will I know that I'm being successful along the way?
Yeah, absolutely. What do you think is the best thing to do with people who they know internally what success could mean for them? Maybe they never said it out loud because maybe they feel embarrassed by saying it, and they are putting it out there. It's the car, it's the house, it's the holiday, it's these external things what you describe, like what is success is defined by media at the moment, or for a long time, I think. And
Yes.
because and also they meet another people and they're like, yeah, did you buy this new car already? And they are kind of telling them that this is important for them, and maybe internally they know it is not as important. So how would you work, or would you do with those people in order to kind of tell them, like, you can have a different success, different meaning to it, but they're afraid to say it?
Oh, brilliant question, which I actually think you've asked me two questions there, so I'll take them one at a time, right? The first one is all about material success, okay? And that is very much a part of what many of us have been conditioned to see as an indicator of success. So that's if you like, the standard of living metric. Which car do you drive? How big is your house? How much money have you got in the bank, etc., etc. But actually, when I've had the privilege of working with many, many people over the last 20 plus years now as a coach, what I've found is that standard of living, which is what we were all trained to pursue, is no substitute for quality of life. They're different things, right? And quality of life is largely experienced as your emotional experience along the way. If you have all the money in the world and several large houses and a garage full of cars, but you are utterly miserable most of the time, you have a high standard of living, but you have a very, very low quality of life. Okay. And the opposite is also true. And for anybody who's ever traveled and met people who, by our standards of how blessed we are here in the West, you might see that people who have very, very little in terms of material wealth, but are joyful and deeply happy and satisfied. So I think that's the first thing. Is I would point people towards the distinction, point my clients toward the distinction between standard of living and quality of life. And it is possible to have both, but we've been trained to pursue standard of living, and most of us have not been trained or encouraged even to pursue quality of life. So that's the first thing. The second thing you mentioned, which I think is very important, is this idea of comparisons. Right? When we look around ourselves, or maybe we're in conversation, and as you put it, somebody says, have you not got that new car yet? Have you not got the latest? Oh, your plate is looking a bit dated here now. It's like, and that's not what matters to you. There is a sort of received wisdom that says, just don't compare yourself with other people. Right? Comparison is the thief of joy is a very well-known saying. But I actually think it's more nuanced than that. My recommendation is use comparison, but for inspiration only. Right? So if you see somebody who is ahead of you on their entrepreneurial journey or on their leadership journey, and you think, wow, that's amazing. How do they do what they do? I'd like to know more about their journey of how they got to where they are. I wonder what drives them, what gets them out of bed in the morning, what values do they operate to? Then that is inspiration. Right? But if you are comparing yourself with somebody who's further down the road with you and using that as a reason to feel inadequate, then ditch the comparison. Right? It's not helpful. It's not helpful in that way. So just remember that whatever we admire in others is potentially available to ourselves, and use those comparisons for inspiration only.
Yeah. I mean, I think a lot of people compare, and I was comparing myself too. When I started with coaching 3 years ago, I remember I was like, yeah, but there is so many another property coaches or another. Now I don't do only property, but when I started, I'm like, yeah, he's doing it for 10 years and he's on that kind of a level. And who I am, what I can offer, or there is Tony Robbins and his coaches, like so many people, and I'm like, and I was comparing. I'm like, how am I even gonna start? And I see it very often when I speak with other clients of mine, not necessarily with coaching, but comparing with different businesses, and it's kind of this hesitation to even start. And a lot of people, they don't start because of that, because of the comparison. Yeah.
Exactly. It's like the coaching market is saturated, the property market is saturated. Why should I bother to write a book? There's already so many books out there, and what I wanted to say, somebody else has probably already said it. No, you have to park all of that and say, what's calling to me? What is the idea that won't go away? That, when I'm kind of just, taking a shower or driving along or chopping carrots for dinner, and my mind is in that kind of just settled, gentle default mode, what is the idea that keeps coming to me again and again and again? You owe it to yourself to honor that. Because whether you're a property speaker, a coach, a leader, it doesn't matter who else is out there doing their thing. You're here to do your thing. And you will be uniquely positioned to bring something that nobody else can bring. But you only get to discover what that is by doing it in the first place, and then following that breadcrumb trail that will show you what you are uniquely best placed to bring.
Absolutely. Yeah. And where do you see yourself in the near future? Do you have any plans for yourself as a speaker, as a coach? I know you are doing coaching for a while now. Do you have any, like, a bigger vision, or would you want to achieve something which is like, maybe you don't know how to get there yet, but it's there?
It's a really interesting question, Vincent. I'm in a place at the moment where I've actually only relatively recently achieved something that was quite big for me. It mattered enormously to me, and that was writing and publishing a book that I had been incubating for years. Far more years than I probably should have took thinking about it. But that, for a long time, that was my kind of goal with soul, if you like. That was the thing that was just, I was holding that in my heart and constantly thinking about it and constantly making little voice notes on my phone and everything. It was, as I was actually running my business. And that when that book came out, It was, which is about 18 months ago now. Obviously, there was this like kind of flurry of activity while you're sort of sharing it and getting feedback and beginning to share little masterclasses based on the ideas in the book and all of that kind of thing. And then I more recently entered this kind of really exciting but also slightly unsettling space of not knowing exactly what's next. And I'm not afraid of that. I'm not, I've been here before. Let me just say, I think when you've been in business as long as I have, you have these transitional points where, I think it's known as the liminal space, right? It's this space in innovation and creativity where you don't know yet, but you can feel like something is about to emerge. And that's where I'm at the moment. So I'm trying not to let my brain just to jump to the quick and easy answers of, what does a corporate consultant who's a coach who's got a book do next, right? The easy off the shelf solutions. And I'm just allowing myself to sit with not knowing right now while I do work that I love, and I'm starting to see little clues. So that's probably not as definitive an answer as you were expecting from me, but it's just that I believe very much at this point in my career that our career and our lives as a whole move in cycles. It's not the linear A to B journey that we've perhaps been conditioned to believe it is. We have these cycles, and in business we see it as product cycles. For example, the early stage of a product and its launch, and then it gets momentum, and then eventually it might tail off. So we see it more clearly perhaps in a business product and service setting. But I think the same is true in our lives, and our dreams and our goals move in those similar cycles. So having just completed a cycle and now just being at the very earliest stages of exploring what might be next, it's quite an exciting time. It feels full of possibility, but I'm not going to shut that thinking down too quickly, because I've learned that if you're willing to not know long enough, something really wonderful tends to emerge.
Yeah. No, it's a very good point. Yeah, it's a very nice answer, because very often people kind of have that vision, which for you in the past it would be that book, but now you are in that space of innovation, which is very nice. It's very good for people to hear that this is normal, because sometimes I had it as well. Like last year, I think I wasn't sure if I want to coach people in property, and I actually changed that, and I still do, but I added that as people in business in general. And I was also in that kind of space. I'm like, yeah, I'm not sure. I was kind of lost a little bit.
Yeah.
I would put it this way, and I wasn't sure which direction I want to go, but I know what felt right. And actually, luckily, I had the coach, and I spoke with him, and he said, like, so what feels right? What is it you want to do? And I was like, this is what I want to do. And he's like, okay, so why are you not doing it? And I had all these answers, like why I think it's not a good idea to start with something new when I'm doing this. And he's like, yeah, but if it's not gonna fulfill you, it's better to start something new if it feels like that. And it's very nice that you are saying that, because feelings are very important in business or in life in general. And I think very often a lot of people, they just act with logic. And my brain is very logical, and I'm trying to learn. And I can see from yourself that you are a very spiritual person, right? So like to get answers and just wait for that.
Well, it's, where I started out, because we've already talked about that, Vincent. So if you want the poster girl for logic, that was me back in as an engineer in the nuclear industry, right? So part of my journey, my evolution has been, you use the word spiritual. I would say, and I think that's a perfectly fine word for it. But for me, the journey has been learning to trust my intuition. That's what this has really been about. And I think, that is really valuable, and I would suggest essential for any leader, whether you are leading your own company, whether you're a leader in a much larger organization. It's so important to learn to trust your intuition. Now, a big part of how your intuition will speak to you is, how are you feeling right? If you have an idea about what to do in the next phase of your career, and when you think on it, you think, it would be very good and it would look good to other people, but you feel your energy sink, right? Then that's telling you something. If, however, you have an idea for the future and you're not sure how you could get there, you perhaps don't yet have the right contacts, all of that kind of thing. But when you think about it, you just feel like, oh my goodness, you feel lifted up and there's just big energy in your heart. And it's like, where would I start? Where would I begin? Then follow that. Joseph Campbell famously said, follow your bliss. And I think this is what he was talking about. I call it, in my book, I refer to it as your inner sat nav, right? Or inner GPS, if we've got any of our friends across the pond are listening right now. Your inner sat nav is your emotions. And they will tell you, the more aligned you are, and the more clear-minded you are, and the more you're paying attention to your own guidance and your own intuition, the better you'll feel. You'll feel a sense of at least hopefulness, if not positive expectation and enthusiasm, maybe even as high as kind of passion and, excitement and joy. If you're feeling stressed out, if you're feeling worried all of the time, if you feel angry and frustrated, think again, because what that's telling you is you are out of alignment with yourself and with your own intuition. And so it's about feeling your way into a way of thinking about and talking about your situation that uplifts and inspires you. So a very quick example of that, you shared with us in this conversation, Vincent, that when you were first thinking about becoming a property coach, you were thinking, but there's already people out there doing it, and some of them have got 10 years experience, etc. Well, there is value in being the new person. Because when you come as a fresh pair of eyes into any sector or any industry or any service area, you are not immersed in the same assumptions and potential limitations as everybody else who's already there. So whilst it's true they may have more experience than you, and you may have a lot to learn from them along the way, the value that you bring is you have no preconceived ideas about what's possible and things like that. So you can be that breath of fresh air that they would also love to talk to and to experience as well. So finding a narrative, a sort of an internal story where you are talking to yourself in a way that supports what you feel in your head and your heart and your gut is the right thing to do. That's a big part of what will allow you to move forward, not only to move forward, but to move forward and enjoy the journey.
Absolutely. Yeah. So are you enjoying the journey?
I'm loving the journey. I hope that anybody listening to this right now will know, or at least catch a little bit of a glimpse of how much I love my work. But what I would just say to anybody listening who is not feeling that way right now is just to say small things make a very, very big difference when it comes to just making these little adjustments. You don't have to drop the job you're doing right now or ditch the business you're running right now in order to have a very different experience. What you do need to do is to notice what it is that brings you joy. Notice those moments when your work doesn't feel like work, right? Where you're adding value for your clients or for, colleagues, and you're making a difference, but it's like wild horses couldn't stop you, right? You just feel like the right person in the right place at the right time. If you reflect on those moments, even just a few examples of these like highlights of your career so far, what you'll begin to see is the patterns. You'll spot the patterns that are associated with you at your brilliant best. And then you can commit to that. You can say, right, this is me when I'm bringing my A game. I'm going to bring my A game more often. I'm going to maybe course correct slightly or make an adjustment, advocate for an adjustment to my role description if they're in an employed position, or I'm going to perhaps flex what I'm doing in my business. But I'm going to do that to make space so that the real me can show up and be in the driving seat. Because when you do that, everybody wins. You win, Your family wins, your clients win, everybody wins when you show up as who you really are.
Mm. Yeah, it's amazing. Yeah, I wanted to ask you actually, if there will be something you could advise to people, but it seems like you kind of answer it. Yeah, if they are in that position at the moment as employee or running a business, and they kind of not sure, they're maybe not enjoying the process, but one of the things what you already mentioned, it'll be the finding those right moments which they play the A game, right, and just thinking about those moments. So
Yeah, and
back
just
Mhm.
if I just elaborate on that very briefly for
Mhm.
you, think about what's true in those moments. Okay, so it isn't just about the nature of the work. It's like, what strengths are you deploying in those moments? What talents are on display? What personal qualities, like dedication or courage or trustworthiness, what personal qualities are in play in those magical moments where you're at your best? What are you focused on in terms of the content of the work? What do you read for pleasure? Right, but actually could contribute to your work. So it's just about doing the self-discovery piece first, like, who am I being and what am I doing and how am I showing up when I'm at my absolute best?
Mm.
And then thinking of your work as being an outlet for that. All right, so committing to bringing that more fully, more frequently, and more consistently.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah, you said it very nicely. And I would like to add, before we wrap it up, is that you have that book. I can see that book is behind you.
Yes,
Show
that's
it.
my book.
Yeah. That's it.
That's a
Exactly.
closer version.
Yeah. Get that and laugh here. Yeah.
Get
And
their love here, yes.
get that laugh here. Would you be so kind and share with us also a link so I can include in the description for anybody who would like to get the copy and read it, because I'm pretty sure that it can help a lot of people to realize the process and joy, and not just not just focusing on the end goal.
That, of course, I'd be delighted to share a link. It is available both as a book and as an audio book for people who prefer to listen. It's on Amazon, and also people can get signed copies straight from me on my website if they would wish. But I will send you all of that after our call. Thanks,
Okay.
Vincent.
Amazing. Yeah, so I'm feeling like we discussed a lot of things. So let me just ask you one more question. Again, like a lot of people who kind of shooting that podcast do, they kind of either are, in the position they want to start their own business, or they already have the business. Maybe they are stuck, and they don't know how to move somewhere else. Would you have anything, because you are in business for a very long time now, so is there anything you would want to give us, like a tip or advice for that kind of person, which can help them? They can just, like, after the recording, they can be like, oh, I'll try that.
Well, I think there's lots of things I could say in response to that, Vincent, but if I had to pick just one, it would be this. One of the biggest factors, particularly when you're looking to get started, will be who you surround yourself with, right? So surround yourself with people who inspire you forward. If you are constantly finding yourself as the most knowledgeable person in the rooms that you're in, or the most experienced person, or the most courageous person, or whatever, you're in the wrong room.
Yeah.
Right? You want to be in a room where the people around you make you go, wow, right? And there's lots of ways of achieving that. You do not have to be finding tens of thousands of pounds for high-end coaches and all of that kind of thing. You can literally jump onto meetup.com and find in your local area or online the kinds of groups that encourage and support small businesses, entrepreneurship, your topic area, and so on. And so curate this is what I call your convoy, right? But you curate that kind of inner circle of people. Is going to probably include a mentor, at least one along the way, somebody who can help you. It may also include a coach. It may include friends and family who you want to share your dreams and aspirations with, or not, because that's a very personal thing. But make sure that you recognize that even though there is work that only you can do, doesn't mean you have to do it alone. right?
Yeah.
So surround yourself with the people who you can contribute to and who can contribute to you, and move forward together. And that's what is, it turns the relentless race into a truly authentic adventure.
Amazing, amazing advice. Thank you very much. I definitely agree, because I think it's very important to surround yourself with the right people in order for you to grow. Yeah, it's super important. So yeah, thank you very much for coming for the interview, Kate. It was very nice to having you, and I'm looking forward to do the next one or see you speak at some event in the near future.
Thank you, Vincent. It's been great to be here. Thanks again for the invitation.
You're welcome.